Hello everyone, author and educator Abhishek Thakkar here. In today's video lecture, I'll be talking about Gayatri Spivak as a major post-colonial theorist. Gayatri Spivak is considered a major modern political post-colonial theorist. She describes herself as a paradisciplinary ethical philosopher. She is quite famous as a translator and for a preface of Derrida's Of Grammatology. She says that my position is quite a reactive one. I am viewed by Marxists as too codic. I am viewed by feminists as too male identified. And I am viewed by indigenous thinkers and philosophers as too much committed to the Western way of thinking. I am quite uneasily pleased by this. Now, let me elucidate the brief biographical details of Gayatri Spivak. Gayatri Spivak was born in Calcutta on 24th February 1942. Her parents were considered metropolitan middle-class people. She belongs to the first generation of intellectuals after the independence in her family. Gayatri Spivak did her BA in English from University of Calcutta. She did her MA from Cornell University and her PhD from Iowa University in USA. In 2007, she became a university professor at Columbia University, and in 2012 she won the Kyoto Prize in Arts and Philosophy. In the year 2014, on December 21, she also received her honorary D.Litt degree from Presidency University, Kolkata. Now I'll be talking about the major works of Gayatri Spivak as a post-colonial theorist. The first important work is Of Grammatology, the translation, and along with that, the critical introduction to the text. Number 2, Selected Subaltern Studies. Number 3, Death of the Discipline. Number 4, Other Asias. Number 5, In Other Worlds, Essay in Cultural Politics. Number 6, a critique of the post-colonial reason towards a history of the vanishing present. These are the major works of Gayatri Spivak. Gayatri Spivak's main interests include literature deconstruction, Marxism, and feminism. She was heavily influenced by the thought processes and the philosophies of Immanuel Kant, Foucault, Derrida, Marx, Ranjit Guha, Mahashweta Devi, and many other philosophers and thinkers. Her notable ideas include strategic essentialism, epistemological performance, as well as her famous idea or notion or theory that is subaltern. Gayatri Spivak's most significant contribution is the subaltern studies. How did this term subaltern enter the world of post-colonial theory? What does this term actually mean? What does this term refer to? The term subaltern actually means those populations that are socially, politically, and geographically outside the hegemonic power structure of the colony and the colonized state. The term subaltern has been derived from Antonio Gramsci's work on cultural hegemony, which identifies those groups excluded from society's established structures. It identifies those groups which have been excluded from society's established structures for political representation and are therefore denied the means by which they can have any kind of voice. Now, how did this term subaltern enter into the world of postcolonial theory? The terms subaltern and subaltern studies entered into the world of postcolonial theory through the works of the subaltern studies group. Now, what is the subaltern studies group? The subaltern studies group is a collection of South Asian historians who explored the political actor role of men and women that comprise the mass population instead of the social and political elites. So we have to remember that the word subaltern basically denotes the men and women of inferior rank or power or status. When we are studying the subaltern theory or when we are studying the subaltern world, we have to understand that history is often told from the point of view of the dominator. The discourse is hegemonic in nature. The discourse is hegemonic in nature and actually only the side of the imperialist. The story, the history has been told from the point of view of the dominator, of the imperialist, of the one who is the colonizer, not the colonized. So subaltern theory attempts to break away from this bias, from this prejudice. It tries to enlighten us about the point of view of the proletarial, the common people, the people who have been colonized. They are given importance because they have been marginalized for a really, really long time. So history should be investigated from alternate sources, from other points of view. We should try to understand history from the point of view of the colonized, from the point of view of the ones who have been suppressed and who have been dominated by the imperialist. The history that we study in our textbooks is actually told from the point of view of the imperialists. For example, the War of 1857 is often called by Britishers as a Sepoys Mutiny, where only soldiers participated, where there was no unity. But from the point of view of the colonized, from the point of view of Indians, it is called the First War of Independence. It is said that this war really wreaked havoc in the British Empire. It created a lot of fear, anxiety, and apprehension in the minds of people. So when we try to understand history, when history is investigated from the point of view of the colonized, we understand the world of subaltern better. We understand the word subaltern better. So this is really important, it is essential that you try to understand history from the point of view of the colonized, from the point of view of the people who have been dominated, who have been suppressed. An important concept in subaltern studies is the binary opposition of the self and the other. The other is generally negated, spurned, and rejected by the colonizers, and the other becomes a subject of their domination and their hegemonic discourse. Gayatri Spivak said that the term subaltern did not mean the ones who were oppressed. It is not necessary that the people who are oppressed are necessarily subaltern class. The oppressed people, the working class people are oppressed people, but they want to claim this term, subaltern. But actually it is wrong to do so. It is a misunderstanding of the term. It is the wrong understanding of the term subaltern. Working class people are oppressed people, but they are not subalterns. There are a lot of people who want to use this word subaltern in a wrong way, and they are the most dangerous kinds of people because they want to wrongfully use this word for their own benefit. We have to understand that the oppressed people are not necessarily subaltern people. For example, a student in university campus might be discriminated. He or she might be considered oppressed, but that does not necessarily mean that he or she is subaltern. He or she is a subaltern. We have to understand what the mechanics of discrimination are. Only then we can understand the difference between the one who is oppressed and the one who is actually subaltern. In Marxist theory, the term subaltern was first used by the Italian intellectual Antonio Gramsci in his work on cultural hegemony. Antonio Gramsci refers to slaves, peasants, women, popolani, popolo, that is, popolani means common people and popolo means people, in his specific analysis of historical contexts. Gramsci believed that subaltern is not confined or restricted to class relations. He believed that the word subaltern is not confined, it is not restricted or not limited to class relations. The term subaltern began as a description of a certain rank in the military, but now the term is a description of everything that doesn't fall under the strict class analysis. Under the censorship of Antonio Gramsci, the term Marxism was called by him as monism. He called the term Marxism monism and the term proletariat as subaltern. We have to understand that this term subaltern earlier meant a certain rank in the military. It was a description of a certain rank in the military, but later it came to be called a description of everything that doesn't fall under the strict class analysis. Spivak's line of reasoning developed in Geographies of Postcolonialism, published in the year 2008. We have to understand that the subaltern in fact had no voice. There was no space where the thoughts of subaltern could be heard unless and until the subaltern imitated the Western way of expression, the Western way of articulation, and employed the Western way of reasoning. The subaltern had to speak the language of the oppressor in order to be heard. The idea of indigenous development was considered inferior by many Western intellectuals. They believed that the idea of modernization, the idea of Western modernization, is superior to the idea of indigenous modernization. Therefore, the subaltern population had to embrace the language of the oppressor and the idea of modernization, that is the Western modernization. They had to accept free trade practices, open market, capitalist economies, and democratic system of governance. The indigenous idea of thought, of reasoning, all the forms were considered inferior, were considered anti-intellectual, or the non-Western sources of knowing, of understanding, of gaining knowledge were considered myth and folklore. And this particular idea of reasoning, that the subaltern idea of modernization is inferior to the imperialist or the dominator's idea of modernization, was something that Spivak was very much against. She opposed this idea and she felt that the subaltern didn't just have a voice. Actually, they did have a voice, but they needed a space where they could voice their opinions, where they could voice their rebuttals, where they could repudiate, where they could refuse this idea of modernization, as well as the fact that only the Western form of knowing is the logical form of knowing. She was against this idea. We also have to understand that in today's times, many intellectuals assert that only the Western form of understanding the world, the Western concept of understanding the world, is the right way of understanding the world. Gayatri Spivak and Edward Said, Orientalist Edward Said, is strongly against this form of thinking. So I hope you enjoyed watching today's video and you found it incredibly useful and utilitarian. Please do share this video with your friends so that they can also grab this opportunity and learn about Gayatri Spivak as a post-colonial theorist. Do subscribe to my channel if you found this video helpful, and I'll meet you in the next video. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.